Hi, my name is Gina Kim, and we're here at the 1988 North Penn High School Republican Campaign Manager Debate. Seated to my far right is Miss Iacocca, the campaign manager for Robert Dole. Seated to my right is Ms. Cavistran and Mr. Murphy, the campaign managers for Jack Kemp. And now to my left, extreme left, are the campaign managers Mr. Lawrence and Mr. Vasily for Pat Robertson. And to my left is Mr. Krantz, the campaign manager for Peter DuPont. The campaign manager for George Bush cannot be with us at this debate, but he would like me to read this brief statement. The campaign for George Bush regrets that we do not have a representative present at this debate. Unfortunately, my previous appointments could not be changed, and a suitable replacement could not be found. The outstanding record of George Bush will have to stand up for itself. The previous state primaries and caucuses, especially the events of Super Tuesday, say more than enough about who the most qualified candidate for the Republican nomination is. Good luck to all the other candidates, and I will see you on Tuesday and Wednesday at the convention. Sincerely, Joe McGee, campaign chairman for George Bush. And now we will start our debate with the managers for the candidates. We'll start our debate on the stand on the INF Treaty. Please limit your responses to 1 minute. We will begin with the campaign manager for Mr. Dole.
All right. Senator Robert Dole does not believe that the INF Treaty should be passed. He feels it doesn't have an adequate checking system, and he also feels that if most of the Democrats want it, and if most of the Democrats want it, it should be reviewed again. And that's it.
Thank you. Next we will go to the managers for Mr. Kemp.
Okay, my candidate, Jack Kemp, is also against the INF Treaty. He believes that there's an inadequate way of checking the distribution of medium-range missiles, which are, in a sense, useless to the defense of America right now. So, in a sense, taking them away would not help or hinder America at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robertson?
The candidate, Pat Robertson, is strongly opposed to the INF Treaty. It doesn't provide an adequate checking system. The Soviets have already violated it by not providing a photograph of the SS-20 system. There's no plan to get rid of the warheads once they've been dismantled. And since the Soviets outnumber us 2-to-1 in conventional forces in Europe, if we take the nuclear weapons out, then that leaves Europe vulnerable to a Soviet ground invasion.
Thank you very much. And last of all, the campaign manager for Mr. DuPont.
Pete DuPont believes that we should not ratify the INF Treaty for some very good reasons. First of all, the Soviet Union has a history of breaking agreements with the United States and other countries. SALT II, ABM, the list goes on and on. We should also not ratify any deal with the Soviets until they prove that they are willing to withdraw from Afghanistan and stop subverting nations all over the world.
Thank you very much. The next topic for debate will be the SDI, the Strategic Defense Initiative, otherwise known as Star Wars. And we'll begin with the campaign managers for Mr. Robertson.
Okay, Pat Robertson favors SDI because the Soviets are superior in air missiles, and that makes SDI valuable because the United States needs a defense against the Soviets' overwhelming superiority in ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles. So he favors strong funding for SDI.
Mr. DuPont?
Pete DuPont believes that we should develop SDI system, mainly because Pete DuPont believes that we should strongly support SDI because it gets rid of the cloud that has been hanging over the world. That cloud is the threat of nuclear weapons being used and an entire race of people being exterminated.
Thank you. The manager for Mr. Dole?
All right. Robert Dole believes in a strong military defense, so therefore he's for SDI, but he also believes in keeping a watch on the Pentagon. Thank you.
Here. The manager is for Mr. Kemp.
Jack Kemp believes that the SDI system as it stands now should be deployed in any way possible. He takes the most radical stand on SDI of any of the Republican candidates. He feels that what we have now should be deployed and further development, and any money spent on defense first priority should be SDI program.
Thank you very much. The next topic for debate will be the budget deficit. How do we balance the national budget? And we will begin with the campaign manager for Mr. DuPont.
Pete DuPont believes that we should alleviate the deficit not by just cutting domestic spending. We should cut military spending, make more efficient use of the money we're spending, and also streamline those social programs that we do not feel are efficient. Also, we have to expand our tax base so we can raise revenue. Personal income tax raising is not the answer, and Pete DuPont is the one candidate who has promised not to raise your taxes.
Thank you very much. And the managers for Mr. Robertson.
If elected, he will balance the budget, he will pass a balanced budget amendment, he will cut federal spending by cutting $30 billion off of defense by dismantling 300 obsolete military bases. He will cut the federal spending by reorganizing the Postal Service, by selling Amtrak to the private sector, by prohibiting foreign loans to communist countries, and by increasing a tax on tobacco and liquor. Pat Robertson will also set up an accounting committee whose sole job is to analyze and evaluate the economy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Robertson. Next, we will hear from the campaign manager for Mr. Dole.
All right. Senator Robert Dole believes that the deficit should be cut within his if elected, within his four-year term by federal spending cuts, more revenues, and a lot of self-help effort for the poor and disabled. He does not believe that income taxes should be increased, and he feels that he will be able to decrease the deficit in his 4 years in office. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will hear from the managers for Mr. Kemp.
Mr. Kemp believes in rapid economic growth through supply-side economics by pumping more money into the economy and strengthening the economy through free enterprise and big business. He also believes in modest spending cuts and no tax increases. He introduced a tax bill in 1981 which cut taxes, and he plans to cut taxes in the future from 28 to 20% and capital gains tax from 28 to 15%, and thus more money will be in the economy to spend.
Thank you very much. The next subject we will debate on is business. What caused and how do we prevent crashes of the stock market is just one of the many questions. And now we will hear from the campaign manager for Mr. DuPont.
Okay, I hope I can get this statement in before they have Mr. Robertson usher in the second coming for me.
Religious bigotry.
Well, the stock market crash was caused by the looming budget deficit and the unwillingness of congressional Democrats to help deal with the problem. If we can limit the spending and increase our tax base, increase revenues, then we can balance the deficit and make sure that we do not have a depression or a recession in the United States.
Thank you very much. And now we'll hear from the managers for Mr. Kemp.
Mr. Kemp believes that the federal government should not have a heavy role in big business, and if it does, then the employment and the free trade that is carried out through the countries of the world will be inhibited through politics and foreign policy, so that the deficit was affected by did affect the fall of the stock market, and he also believes in the line item veto, which would allow a decrease in federal spending.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Iacocca for Mr. Dole.
Okay, Robert Dole believes also in line item veto, and he thinks that the federal spending is what helped cause the stock market crash. He believes in federal spending cuts because if he looks at it now, Bush is running around in his jets and with all his aides, and that's millions of dollars of money that could be used in other ways than for federal spending. So he believes in that federal spending cuts and private enterprise will make sure that there's not another stock market crash in the future.
Okay, thank you. Our next topic for debate will be on education. What is the role of education in the U.S.? What should it be? And we'll begin with Mr. Cransford DuPont.
Pete DuPont believes that we do need a strong educational system because, in effect, it's the future of our nation. So in doing so, we also should have various training programs to re-educate the workforce in the changing needs of our changing economy.
Thank you. And now for Mr. Kemp.
Mr. Kemp also strongly believes in the education as an important process for the training of young Americans in the upcoming generations. He supports education, and they want to increase the amount of programs that are available and the curriculums, but not necessarily increase federal spending for college grants.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from Ms. Iacocca.
Senator Robert Dole believes that the role of education in the United States is a very great one, and he will do anything possible to get education promoted and things done for better education in the United States.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from the managers of Pat Robertson.
Pat Robertson wants to make the United States #1 in education. We're second to nobody. Okay. He wants to make sure the English language will stay the national language. He wants to wipe out illiteracy. And he's going to enforce low-interest student loans. And he wants more involvement of the business and local community organizations involved to help education. And on the line of education, let's talk about Pat Robertson's education. He graduated Macaulay High School in Chattanooga, Virginia. He gained a BA at Washington and Lee University in history.
Oh, thank you very much.
And so on.
Our next topic of discussion will be unemployment. How do we increase employment? Now we will start with the manager for Mr. Dole.
Senator Robert Dole believes in private enterprise, and he wants to get as many jobs possible, so he'll try to start things in the government for more jobs.
Thank you. Thank you. The managers for Mr. Robertson.
Pat Robertson wants to get rid of welfare totally. He has a new system. It's called workforce. Instead of the federal government involved, it'll be close ties with the state and local governments, helping to aid the unemployment people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Krantz for DuPont.
Pete DuPont also has a similar program that he's been promoting throughout the campaign and before. It involves education, involves the government stepping in with the private sector. What he would do was every able-bodied American will stop getting welfare. They are able-bodied people, they will get jobs in the private sector, or if they cannot get one, the government will support them one until other jobs can be found. This will increase our tax base once again and bring in additional revenue and will also lower unemployment.
Thank you very much. And now we will hear from Mr. Kemp's managers.
Okay. As a part of Kemp's supply-side economic plan, he believes strongly for free trade in America. Lower trade barriers would thus cause more jobs because protectionism costs jobs in America. He would return the country to the gold standard, thus stabilizing currency, and this would be conducive to declining interest rates.
Okay, thank you very much. To conclude our debate today, I will ask each of the managers this question. If your candidate were to be elected president, how do you envision the USA in 4 years? And we will begin with Mr. Robertson's managers.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that we've discussed all the issues here, and I don't really see a whole lot of difference between our candidate and this candidate. But what it boils down to is leadership. Who can provide moral, military, and business leadership for this country? And that man's Pat Robertson. If Pat Robertson is elected president, he's going to balance the budget, he's going to create more jobs, and he's just going to basically stabilize America and bring it back to the good old days when America was #1. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Krantz for DuPont?
My colleague here is right. We all do have similar visions, but who has specific programs and initiatives to deal with the problems facing today? Ronald Reagan and the Republicans have made great strides in these last 8 years. What we need is someone who can challenge the American people and usher them into the 1990s and beyond.
Thank you. The managers for Mr. Kemp?
The country is on a continual upswing as the deficit has been stabilized and the economy has been strengthened over that of 8 years ago. This is due to the conservative candidate who had won the presidency, Ronald Reagan. Kemp is also a conservative Republican, and his views certainly reflect this. In the past 8 years, as I stated, the conservative views have worked well for the country, like in the good old days, when the economy was strong. Jack Kemp wants to maintain and improve these current conditions and economy in America. In addition, he is the candidate that possesses the only real leadership qualifications necessary to be president of the United States in light of his track record. Vote Jack Kemp, the only real candidate.
Thank you. And finally, we'll hear from Ms. Lycoka, the manager for Dole.
Okay. Senator Robert Dole is a tough, combative, decisive candidate who is compassionate towards the infirm and ailing. He's someone who's been tested, someone who's made it the hard way, and who knows real people. He has made a great comeback from his war injury, and that's how he feels what he can do with the United States in 4 years. He can make a great comeback. He's ready to balance the budget, create new jobs, and get America back into the competitive foreign trade market. So remember to vote Senator Robert Dole for president. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being with us here today at this very informative debate. And I would like to thank each and every one of our guests. And this will conclude our debate for 1988. Thank you.